Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Arkansas Alive. I'm Happy Caldwell, and I want to share with you all this week a story of faith. I call it Job, a story of faith. And you might be thinking, Job is a story of faith? Yes. So stay tuned, and I'll prove it to you out of the Word. Arkansas Alive begins right now. You know, yesterday we were reading a conversation between God and Satan concerning Job. God was not bargaining with Satan. They were not using Job as a toy. They were not trying to prove anything. Satan was just fulfilling his MO, which is stealing, killing, and destroying. Job provided the atmosphere for him to do so, because you're going to find out in a few chapters here that what Job was doing, making sacrifices for his kids if they had sinned, it was something that he greatly feared. And Job finally admitted, what I greatly feared has come upon me. Fear opens the door to stealing, killing, and destroying. I've read doctors' reports where they say, if a person has faith and not fear, a disease cannot enter their bodies. A disease comes in the pores of their skin. And if you have no fear, your pores of your skin stay closed, and the disease or the germs or the virus, whatever, can't penetrate. But if you have fear, all kinds of things can happen, because fear is a dinner bell to the devil. I mean, fear to the devil is like blood in the water to a shark. He is drawn to fear. So if you have fear of something, and Job did, Job 3:25, the thing I greatly feared came upon me. So Job was afraid that his kids were sinning. That's why he was sinning. That's why he was making sacrifices. And then we read yesterday about all the things that happened to Job. God was not behind these. God was not even allowing Satan. He merely reminded Satan that he had taken the authority and power that Adam gave him. Now, to me, this proves ownership. Ownership is the law of empowerment. And this proves that Adam did not take ownership of the earth. In Psalm 8, and we'll read this, it says, what is man that you have given him all this authority and power over the work of your hands? And God did. He gave Adam authority, but Adam did not take ownership of the authority and the power. So therefore, that's what Satan wanted. He wanted that power. So he comes and he usurps it. He deceives Eve, but Adam willfully gave it to him. And we see where Satan tempts Jesus with it in Luke 4 in the wilderness. Now notice, we're going to pick up reading in verse 19. Job chapter 1, verse 19. We're still in the first chapter, but there's so much in here. Suffering occurred in the book of Job, but that's not the story. The story is a story of faith. Listen to verse 19. Behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness. The wilderness is not descriptive of God or heaven or good or peace. The wilderness is descriptive of a place of temptation, a place of sin, a place of destruction. And there came a wind, and we can align it and liken it to a tornado because of the description. It smote, this is wind, it smote the four corners of the house, and it fell upon them, and they are dead. What happens when the wind is perverted and a tornado, it acts like a vacuum, and it just sucks things up in it and causes, and it says here, the four corners of the house, and it fell and killed them. And we've seen this happen time and time again. And you can't align God with this destruction, because that's not his DNA. He didn't come to steal, kill, and destroy. Satan did. He came that you might have life. And you say, well, why does God allow this? God isn't allowing it. We are. Now, I know that's a strong statement. We are because of ignorance and because we don't take our authority. God gave Adam authority over all of the creation. And he said, I want you to take authority, take ownership of this. It's your responsibility now. And you deal with these things. Now, we found out yesterday in 1 Corinthians 10 that all these things happen as a result of fallen man, fallen nature. These things are things that are, accustomed to and line up with human culture. These are common to man. These things happen to man's fallen nature, our fallen world. That's why we're here as Christians, as the body of Christ, is to stand against this. We're the salt and we're the light of the world through Christ. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. So next time you hear these things, you go outside and you talk to it. And you bind those demons that are perverting the weather. And you say, stop in the name of Jesus. I command you to cease. That's what Jesus did to the storm. He's told it to stop. He spoke to the wind and the waves and said, stop, cease. This is not what you were created for. Now listen to this. Go back to the normal purpose in creation of wind and water, which was not destruction. So these destructive things are perversions of nature. These are not acts of God, as your insurance company may say. Stealing, killing, and destroying is not an act of God. That's not God's MO. That's not His GA. So after these things happened to Job, look at verse 20, Job 1:20. Then Job arose, rent his mantle, or the marginal reference says his robe. Remember, he was righteous. And he rent his mantle, shaved his head, fell down upon the ground, and worshiped. This was common to the times in the covenant that Job lived under. Now listen to the rest of it, very interesting. And Job said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Now, here's another misstatement about God. Here's another, if you can handle this, here is another lie that's in the Bible. Oh, I know well, you mean there are lies in the Bible? Yes, there are things that are said. True, Job said this. But it's not true concerning God. It's false concerning God. But he said it. He said, the Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Verse 22, in all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly, or attributed the folly to God. Now, I want to give this example. It's a humorous example, but it'll help you understand. I don't know if you've ever seen the classic Western starring John Wayne. It's called Red River. And John was a cattleman that came and he claimed the land and he was going to raise a herd. And while he was raising his herd, it took him 10 years or so, whatever. I don't remember all the details that clearly, even though I've seen that movie, Red River, several times. But it's interesting. I saw this portrayed in that movie. Now, there were people that came and tried to rustle John's cattle, and John Wayne's not going to put up with that, so what does he do? He shoots them, kills them. And he tells his sidekick, old Mose, Hank Warden, he tells him, said, dig a hole, bury them, and I'll read over them. Did you get it? Dig a hole, bury them, and I'll read over them. You know what he read? You go back and watch the movie, rent it or pull it off, whatever, and you watch it every time. Now, I don't know how many men he killed, 3, 4, whatever. Every time he read over those men, rustlers, that he killed. He got his Bible out of his saddlebag. I've noticed this. All of John Wayne's movies have something about God in them. And he got his Bible out of his saddlebag, and he stood there and he read over this rustler that he killed. He read, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. I laughed when I first saw it. The Lord didn't kill that man, John did. But nevertheless, people have quoted this for eons. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. It's false because the Lord didn't take anything away from Job. The Lord gave him everything that he had and blessed him on every side and built a hedge around about him. He was the wealthiest man in the East. The Lord gave him everything, but the Lord didn't take anything away from him. So what Job said about God was not true. And God took note of this, and you're going to see this as we go on. Let's finish Job talking here. In chapter 2, again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came along among them. And the Lord said to Satan, From whence comest thou? And Satan said, From going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job? And we've translated that before over in chapter 1. It says, Why have you set your heart upon my servant Job? And he said, There's none like him in the earth, a perfect man, an upright man, the one that fears God, shuns evil, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although you move me against him to destroy without cause. There's no reason for God to do anything to Job because he's already blessed him. And Satan said, here it is, skin for skin, all that a man has will he give for his life. See, the big problem with Satan was he's an outlaw spirit. He could not understand why anybody would serve God for any other reason than to get blessed. He had no understanding of a relationship with God based on faith and not fear. Notice it says, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Now his wife told him, let's just jump ahead a little bit. And here, it's, he still is not sure about his words. He's saying things, and you'll find out God reprimands him. He's saying things that he doesn't know what he's saying. In verse 9, he said, then said his wife unto him, do you still retain your integrity towards God? Why don't you just curse God and die? Wow, he married the wrong woman. This is not what you want for a helpmeet. But he said unto her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we receive good at the hand of the Lord and not receive evil? Now see, there's another wrong statement. No evil comes from God. God is good, and His mercy endures forever. So here's another statement that we've already discovered 2 or 3 things that God said about God that were not true, that Job said about God that were not true. In all this, did not Job sin with his lips? In other words, he didn't mean this out of his heart. He said these things out of his mind, which was doubtful. He didn't understand the things of God, and God spends. My goodness, when I first studied this, and I did a total teaching on it. I don't know if we still have that as an offer, but I think you can go online, vtntv.com, and I think you can pull up some of our products, and it may still be on there. Job, A Story of Faith. And you'll realize all the things that God interrogated Job about. And now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon them, of course they came to mourn him, to comfort him, but they were not much as comforters, because they assumed that Job deserved all of this. They said, well, this stuff happened to you for a reason, and you must have sinned, you must have done something. And, we don't know what you're going to do about it. But Job continues to converse with God. And over in chapter 3, and you go down to verse 25, you see where Job broke his hedge. You'll see how the devil got in there. The thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. Boy, you need to mark this down in your note-taking. You don't ever need to say, I tell you, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that, I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid if I don't go over here, I'm afraid if I do this, I'm afraid. Get that out of your vocabulary. That's what Job did. I'm afraid my kids are sinning, so I'm going to make a sacrifice. That's not faith. That's fear. And Ecclesiastes said, he who breaketh a hedge, a serpent will bite him. So God had built this hedge around Job, protected him under an umbrella, under a canopy of blessing and protection. But he broke the hedge down through the things that he feared. I'm afeard of this, I'm afeard of that, I'm afeard of my kids, I'm afraid. And before you know it, everything you say is based on fear. Based on what you see, hear. That's why you need to turn that mainstream media off. Turn off those social platforms. Turn off the secular media that's only feeding you bad news. Even the good news is bad. They can't help it. It's a how would I say? It's their operation. It's their DNA. It's their MO. That's what they do. You may have heard the story, excuse me, about the turtle, excuse me, that was going to swim across the river. And the scorpion said, can I ride on your back? And the turtle said, yes, but you have to promise me that you will not sting me, because if you sting me, I'll die. And I don't want you stinging me, so you have to promise. And the scorpion said, I promise I won't sting you. So the scorpion gets on the turtle's back, and they get halfway across the river, the stream, whatever. And the scorpion tucks his tail and stings the turtle, and the turtle begins to die and go down. And his last breath, he looked up and he said, why did you sting me? And the scorpion said, I couldn't help it. It's my nature to sting. It's Satan's nature to steal, kill, and destroy. It's the media, and I know this is a strong statement, and I don't mean this unkindly or critically, but because I have friends in the media. But the media, basic, the mainstream media, basic, it is their nature to report the bad news. It's their nature to, how do they say it? It's a political term. It's their nature to manage expectations. It's their nature to create things that are not desirable. And Ted Koppel blew the whistle on them years ago when he got out of the media. He said, they never told us what to do or how to do it. They only told us whatever you do has to make money. That's it. The love of money is the root of all evil. They're in business to make money. And so they're driven by that. They have to keep their ratings up because that's how they charge their advertisers. Higher the ratings, higher their advertising prices. If your ratings go down, you can't charge the big bucks. So they have to keep the ratings up, whatever it takes. They never let truth stand in the way of a good story. So, back to the scriptures. What Job feared came upon him. And let's go over to chapter 5. In verse 17, behold, happy is the man whom God corrects. Therefore, despise not the chastening of the Almighty. Now we're entering into a new part of this story of faith. God corrects Job. Job repents. He asks God to forgive him of things that he said that were not true, things that he said about God that were wrong. And let's read these, some of these things. Despise not the chastening, and we're going to define what chastening means. The chastening of the Lord is not tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, sickness, disease, plagues. That is not the chastening of the Lord. The chastening of the Lord, and we can prove and verify this out of the Scriptures, the chastening of the Lord is to correct by instruction. But so few Christians are at a level of maturity in spiritual things that they can discern, accept correction by instruction. We have submitted ourselves to a lower standard that, if God wants to get our attention, he has to knock us between the eyes with a 2x4. He has to send a pandemic, he has to send a plague, he has to send a tornado, a hurricane, a flood. That is not the chastening of the Lord. God corrects by instruction, and he says that in the Bible. That's the chastening of the Lord. Not outward circumstances that put you in a pressure, in a vice, or cause you to be sick or diseased or poor or tormented or whatever. So, he said, he will deliver you in 6 troubles, and in 7 there shall no evil touch you. Are you listening? In famine, he will redeem you from death. In war, from the power of the sword. You shall be hid from the scourge of the tongue. Neither shall you be afraid of destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you shall laugh. Neither shall you be afraid of the beasts of the earth. For you shall be in a league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. And you shall know that that tabernacle shall be in peace, and you shall visit thy habitation, and shall not sin. This is God's promise. This is God's promise to you. It was God's promise to Job. Therefore, you don't need to be afraid. I'm always interested in people's testimony or response when tragedy comes. And you will more than likely always hear this expression: I was so afraid. I was fearful. And, when you don't know the Word and you don't know God, I can understand that. I've been afraid in my life. But once I got saved, and once I found out what the Word says, once I found out what God said and how God felt about me and what He said in His Word, I quit fearing. I was not afraid. Once the love of God was shed abroad in my heart by the Holy Ghost, I was no longer afraid of God or anything that was sent in my direction. I know what God sends and what God doesn't send. I know what comes from God, and I know what comes from the devil. And God is good all the time. He's on my side, and I'm on His side. I have a covenant with God through Jesus Christ, the righteous. And so I'm not afraid of those things that I see or hear out there. I was talking to somebody about these kind of things the other day. And I told him, I said, I'm not afraid. I'm not fearful of these things that are coming on the earth, because I've read the book, I've read the Bible, I've read Jesus' words. I know what to expect. Do you know? Well, Pastor Caldwell, you just never know what. Yeah, you do. You can know. I'm not afraid. I'm not scared of the things that you're seeing manifested in the earth, because I know what the Word of God says. And if you know what the Word says and you believe it and live and act upon it, Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the knowledge of the truth will make you free. free from error, free from fear, free from sin. Now, let's go over to, let's go over to Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12, and God reveals to us what chastening is all about. So you'll know. You'll know that God's not mad at you. He's not trying to get you. He's not trying to scare you. He's not trying to get your attention. If you understand Romans chapter 6, verse 14, it says, those that are the sons of God are to be led by the Spirit of God. God doesn't lead you by trials, tribulations, destruction. He leads you by His Spirit. That's how He leads His children. The inward witness. That's the primary way that God leads His children. The inward witness. You get to the point spiritually mature enough to where you don't have to have a clap of thunder, a bolt of lightning. You don't have to have a plague or a tornado or whatever. You don't have to have any of those outward manifestations. You learn and hear by the inward man, your spirit man. And you begin to learn how to follow that, and you won't be afraid. Let me start this. We don't have time to finish it today. We'll pick this up tomorrow. Excuse me, Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 5. You have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin, and you've forgotten the exhortation which speaks unto you as children. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when you are rebuked of Him. Now we'll find out in Job how God corrected Job. Job repented, and he accepted God's correction by instruction, and God gave him back twice what he had before. But notice, he said, when you are chastened of the Lord, then He's dealing with you as a son. I want you to join me for tomorrow's Arkansas Live for the rest of the week. And remember, Jesus is Lord of Arkansas and wherever in the world you're watching too.
Send your questions, comments, and testimonies to Happy Caldwell at Post Office Box 26207, Little Rock, Arkansas 72221, or email happycaldwell@vtntv.com. Remember to follow VTN on Facebook at VTN Your Arkansas Christian Connection, and follow Happy Caldwell on Twitter at Happy_Caldwell. VTN is on Roku. Search VTN in the channel store and add us to your lineup. Today's episode is available to watch on demand at VTNTV.com and click Watch. You can also watch VTN via live stream at VTNTV.com.